Coming up today on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, we come to you live from Las Vegas in the biggest sports book in the world at Circa Sports. We talk gambling odds. It is Iowa Media Day, and we get into tomorrow what we expect to see with Kids Day, all coming up on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.
Our Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back once again to the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I'm Trent Condon. Glad to have you aboard with us, and thank you for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen each and every day as we come to you live from Circa, the new hotel down on Fremont Street in Las Vegas, here for a big sign-up weekend with their two contests here, the Circa Survivor Contest and Circa Million. So was here with the radio work and said, hey, we still got another podcast to do. We're going to have an abbreviated one for you today, as I got to get back and, well, got some things to do. Got to sign up for these contests, including the hat that I got right here. So got a lot going on today, but wanted to talk a little Hawkeyes with you out there here today. With that, we look forward to certainly what we have coming up with Kids Day. That will be tomorrow, an opportunity to get this, a look at this team. And later today, it will be Media Day. We will get Media Day, and that means an opportunity to hear from the players, hear a whole bunch about what is happening with them. So many question marks, obviously, still to be answered about this football team. And, you know, there are questions that overall, I think we have at least a pretty good idea of where they are, but injuries always can change the complexion. We've talked about that a little bit. And what are the components of this team that maybe do make you a little bit more concerned, a little more curious about how they're going to look and how they're going to wrap things up. So we'll get into that. What we expect to see today, I think, though, at Media Day is a couple of things. The first one is maybe one of the biggest ones. It is, how big is that gap at the quarterback position? We're going to hear from Spencer Petras. We'll hear from Alex Padilla. We'll hear from the two youngsters also vying for the jobs. But is it a real job? Is it a real job that's actually open, or is it Spencer Petras? It doesn't matter what happens tomorrow in the only open practice that we'll get to this squad. It is going to be his job. How about some of the young names? And that's always a fun part of Media Day, too, is finding out more about some of these youngsters. So we're going to get a look at that. For many times, the first time hearing from them. Now it's changed a little bit. Xavier Wampa and the rest of the freshmen will be available. Remember, for years and years, that wasn't the case, where you had to wait until they completed their first year of eligibility before you could even hear them talk. And it's so funny. I mean, in today's day and age where these guys are being talked about, interviewed when they're in high school, and then they go and have their freshman year and they can't talk to the media. It's a little crazy, but that's the reality of the situation with that. So that's coming your way, and that will be later today. So lots of information. And, of course, we'll be back with you on Monday to recap things. LaShawn Daniels, we had a little bit of a hiccup here today, and because of that, weren't able to get LaShawn on. Didn't want to have him waiting too long, but wanted to get a podcast to you. We'll be back, and we're continuing our daily schedule here. We'll get LaShawn back on hopefully a week-to-week basis, a couple of times a week on Mondays and Fridays as football season draws closer and closer. You know, one of the big things I did wonder about was this time as you're kind of wrapping up camp and getting back to a little bit more normalcy. You know, school's right around the corner, and going away after you're leaving those, though they're not two-a-days anymore, just the lockdown nature that you have when you're going through these practices and being holed up in the hotel. And we talked about that a little bit with LaShawn, but certainly wanted to get his perspective a little bit more, and we will do that with him next week. So that's what we got on the forefront here today. And Hawkeye news, you know, not a whole lot out there. It was great to hear Luka Garza. If you missed that one yesterday, you can go back on the podcast page or back here on YouTube if you're watching the video side of things, and you can hear more from Luka Garza if you missed that one. A really fun conversation with him. We also talked to David Eicholt earlier in the week, so lots of good content there. We're going to continue, and when we do, we're going to take a look at some of the betting lines that are available for these Hawkeyes. I'm in Las Vegas. We're having fun. We're going to do that when we come back. The Locked On Hawkeyes podcast continues here in a moment. Well, talking about, obviously, betting and everything happening there, well, there's other things that we can also talk about as it pertains to that, and that is our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline, a great resource helping you out about what you can find out to do in the betting landscape. BetOnline is the place to find all the information. They got info, they got podcasts, whatever you can look for. BetOnline. If you're a bettor, it is a must stop for you each and every day. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL, golf. We got the FedEx St. Jude Championship happening this week, and I'm heavily invested in a couple of guys at the top of the leaderboard there. Baseball, that hasn't been quite as good. And, of course, preseason football as we await for the college football season. It's BetOnline, your place to go for your betting needs. Trent Condon back with you here once again. One final time again, just a quick podcast today. Wanted to get something out before the weekend in Iowa football. And where I wanted to go was, well, where I am right now here at Circa, the biggest sports book in the world. It's an incredible venue. If you're a sports fan, it is certainly a must stop. And the two contests that I've just signed up and getting ready to sign up for both of them, Circa Million and Circa Survivor. If you're making your way to Vegas, you can do that. You need to get a proxy while you're here. That'll put in your picks each and every week. But for our listeners, either across the landscape or even ones in Nevada, something that you certainly can do for this Circa Million and Circa Survivor here on Fremont Street at the brand new hotel. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the odds that are available. Of course, you can bet in the state of Iowa with Circa, but here in Nevada right now, looking at those numbers, want to start with the Hawkeyes over-under, their win total for the season. And this is a very simple exercise. How many games will Iowa win, over or under? The number is currently 7.5. So if you think Iowa is going to be 8-4 or better, then you'd bet the over. If you think they're going to be 7-5 or worse, you would bet the under. And that one, juice is pretty much even on both sides, minus 115 on the over side, minus 105. You go down, you break it down, and you look through the schedule. Of course, the two heavy heads. Michigan, you get them coming into Kinnick. You feel good about that. At least that's a home game. Ohio State, it's going to be a tall task. It already is. We know what happened the last time the Hawkeyes and Buckeyes got together. That was a good one for the good guys. Since then, though, that program continues to play at an incredibly high level. Not only that, it's not going to be in Kinnick. It's also going to be on the road. Two incredibly difficult games at the forefront. Then you get into that next tier. You get into the next tier of games for the Hawkeyes. You look at the rivalry games and the rivalries that Iowa has dominated here as of late. Iowa State, 6 years in a row, 7 years, 6 wins in a row for the Hawkeyes in that series. Same thing against Minnesota. Same thing against Nebraska. They have dominated those series. Do you anticipate that, again, they're going to go 3-0? If you don't give Iowa a win in either of those first two games you mentioned, against Ohio State, against Michigan, you give them 2-1, you give them 2-1. All right, now we're up to 3 losses on the season. There's a couple more difficult games on there. First of all, Purdue on the road, a team that you have not played well against, with Jeff Brom at the helm for the Boilermakers. And then Wisconsin, that over the last 9 years, when you beat them, it's really good. When you don't, it's been disappointing. And the winner of that game, more times than not, outside of Northwestern, is going to represent the West in the Big Ten championship game. Do you get through that with the split? Now you're up to 4 losses. That means you have to be perfect through South Dakota State, Nevada, Rutgers, at Illinois, Northwestern, another difficult one. You have to go undefeated through that stretch if you play it out that way just to get to 8-4. It's a good team. It's going to be a great defense. I still need to see more on the offensive side of the ball, and I know I'm not alone on that realm. So 7.5, that is the number right now for the Hawkeyes in the totals to win the Big Ten championship game. Well, no surprise that Ohio State's obviously the favorite. In fact, they're a minus 210 favorite. What that means on a standard $100 bet, or if you're like me, a $10 bet, you would have to lay $210 to win $100 back. On the other side, you can bet the no also at Circa. That's something a little bit different that they do at Circa, where you can bet the other side of things and you can put it down where you bet the no side. So if you don't think the Buckeyes are going to win the championship, you can bet them no. That is plus 170. Meaning you bet $100, you'd win $170 back. So that is Ohio State, your favorite. The Hawkeyes are 23-1. 23-1 to win the Big Ten championship. You make a $100 bet. That is $2,300. Nice return on investment there. You can also bet them no. A little bit different, minus 3,900 on the no side of things. After Ohio State, the second betting choice is Michigan, of course, the champions of the Big Ten a year ago. They are currently at plus 820. Next on the list, looking through and scrolling, make sure I didn't miss anybody. I didn't. It is Wisconsin. Wisconsin is plus 1175, the third betting choice. Penn State, 14-1. How about this? Still happening. Nebraska, 15-1. Save your money. Nebraska, as I've said before, I think they're going to be better this year. I think they're going to be improved, and I think that they're going to take a step forward from what we've seen. And maybe it's enough to keep Scott Frost around for another season. But do I think they're going to break through and suddenly win all those close games and finish up at 9-3? I just don't see that happening. Minnesota, they are 28-1. If you want to take a long shot, and Purdue 37-1. So those are the odds across the Big Ten. Also, Michigan State, by the way, listed at 45-1. So those are your top tier teams to win the conference this season. To win it all, well, that's the biggest part, right? Alabama's the betting favorite at plus 165. Did want to see where the Buckeyes are. Ohio State, one of the other top betting choices, plus 315, a little bit better than 3-1 odds on the Buckeyes to win it all. And if you think it's all coming together this year for the Hawkeyes, well, you can bet on it. How about this? You can get it at 20,000 to 1. Not too bad, huh? Not too bad. As mentioned, just an abbreviated show here for you today, coming to you live from the Circa Sportsbook. A big thank you to everybody out there. We'll be back on our normal schedule next week. LaShawn will be back with us. Plenty of Hawkeye football. We'll recap what we hear and see today at Iowa Football Media Day. And, of course, the big one tomorrow is Kids Day, our first and only look at this Hawkeye squad before the season comes to a close. Before we get out of here, also, of course, Locked On Hawkeyes, your first listen each and every day. Don't forget about Nate Dickinson and Locked On Big Ten. Find out everything going on across the Big Ten landscape with Locked On Big Ten. You can do that each and every day. I got some football contests to sign up with, and then I got some funning and sunning to do here in Las Vegas. We'll be back with you on Monday with the next edition of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.